Yeah, welcome again to another session of the 18th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment Virtual Conference. I'm Bob Ailes. I'm your moderator. Happy President's Day. I have no idea how you celebrate President's Day, but it is what it is. So keep in mind we're sponsored this year by the Journal of Educators Online, JEO. They have a great number of refereed articles that you can explore going back to 2004, actually.
Wow.
So just go to thejeo.com and look around and you'll find something I think of value. We have with us today Florence Williams, Flo. She is an instructional designer. She engages in pedagogical faculty support. Uh, she's worked as the professional development team lead at the University of West Indies. She's been involved in faculty development, coaching, mentoring, in the design and development of online and blended courses. We also have Tina Calandrino, uh, worked as an educator in higher learning for over 25 years. Started when you were 10 years old, right?
Thank you. Right.
Yeah. She started her career as faculty at Miami-Dade College, working with students in a new Macintosh computer writing center. And today, her research interests are in online learning, include competency-based education, faculty development, and micro-learning. So today, they are going to talk about bringing the world into the classroom, introducing and implementing COIL in higher education. So, Leda, take it away, please.
Well, thanks for that lovely introduction, Bob. And once again, Flo and I are very happy to be here. And thank you for inviting us to this amazing conference. 18 incredible years of bringing people together and sharing education is not an easy task, as we know, but we are glad that we have each other to rely on and learn from. And that's what we're trying to do today. So, we decided at one of the largest universities in the country that we needed to implement a COIL program. So, what is COIL and how do you start a COIL program in higher education at your facility? So, COIL really is the collaborative online international learning. And so, what it's trying to do is bridge classrooms across continents. It's going to share information from one faculty member in one country and another faculty member in another country. But they're going to teach the same concepts with their students, have the students interact, and have the students be responsible learners and citizens of the world. Our world is getting closer with online learning, and we try to expand our knowledge. It was pioneered by SUNY, and they just really went through it. They published a book on this. They said, here, go and do what you need to do on it. They wanted everybody to really focus on those faculty partners. So you don't necessarily have to be teaching English or writing or engineering and engineering. What you have to do is be teaching a collaborative topic so that your students can get together for a series of synchronous and asynchronous activities and become international teams and start learning how to use digital communication and collaboration tools. We also learned from Florida International University. They have been leaders in this in the state of Florida, and we are just about to start our second round of COIL interactions. So, why is COIL so important? Well, here it was the importance of COIL in online writing courses. And Flo, you're right. I grabbed the wrong PowerPoint. I apologize for that. It's the little computer. But COIL is important in all courses, but especially it's a pivotal role in helping students develop that intercultural competencies. So we have to stop and say, why is that important to everybody? It's not. But right now, the world has been globalized. I work with a faculty member who is teaching event management, and it's a series of 3 classes where they actually do real live career fairs, events that they plan on campus, and they are pairing with another faculty member in Portugal. And those students are actually engineering students, but they need to learn how to bring out their skills and market it to people. So the event series people are going to be working with the engineering students and broadening their perspectives and showing them how that they can lay everything out to market to the rest of the countries and buy their products that they're developing. So each university has to do a lot of planning in the background. So who runs it? Who's going to own it? How are you going to get faculty to participate? We were very lucky with all the pre-COIL planning. We had worked with our University of Central Florida. We have it's called iLab, and it's an innovations lab that is under the Division of Digital Learning. And what iLab did is their director, Wendy Howard, went out and started talking to faculty members that she knew, faculty deans and chairs, and telling them what they wanted to learn, how they needed to learn it, how it would be best for their. So she was on higher level project coordination. She also partnered with our Office of Global Studies, and she also partnered with the Department of Continuing Education. So it was 3-pronged thing that iLab had to do: project and faculty recruiting. On the same time, she was in the higher level with all of those people. She also had to talk with the University of Guatemala, otherwise referred to as UVG. We decided we were going to do a pilot program with them. And how were we going to do the pilot program? Because usually it's a selection process, it's all voluntary, it's a lot of extra work for instructors. So why would they want to do it? Well, again, some of them really want to improve their courses, they want to help their students. Why do their students need this? And a lot of students' curriculums are built in that they have to do all of that collaboration. So for some faculty members, it was really great that they could find somebody to work with. On our end, they brought in the instructional designers, and there was a team of 5 of us. And I'm going to let Flo speak to this in a moment because she really was instrumental in getting those competencies together. We had to decide how we wanted to deliver it and what methodology we wanted to give. We were working with time zone difference, we were working with language differences. So, how are we going to do those live synchronous sessions? And how are we going to get faculty liaisons? So, the IDs became faculty liaisons, not just for the UCF people, but for all of those live courses, for all of the course development. We were able to do everything on a little bit of a shortened timeline from when we started to when we got it going was basically from early spring, and then we went live for our first meet and greet so that people could meet and partner up by the end of summer, and we started our pilot last fall, so it was a year ago fall. Flo, am I right on that, or was it a year ago spring?
So we started our work in the fall for a spring launch of the process. And while we did that, we were working in the background to ensure that we could work with the faculty in terms of who had which roles and responsibilities and how we were working together, not just on the UCF side, but on the University of Guatemala side. One of the things that is important for us at UCF is that our faculty are paired with an instructional designer. So we were able to extend that reach to the partnerships by having drop-in sessions with them where they could ask questions if they felt like they were stuck.
And we also had the advantage of having a few people that had been through a COIL project before, including one of our instructional designers that was a part of all of this. Efren de la Morasco was at the University of Mexico, and he was able to be a part of a COIL project. And that also brought a lot of attention of what he missed in his project and what he wished that he had, but also what strengths were there that we could build on too. And so build we did. I will say that iLab and UVG gave the instructional designers a lot of leeway to build what we wanted to do. We had a lot of check-ins and a lot of times, but we started out with, again, competencies. If you don't have that learning objective aligned with that learning outcome, it was going to be difficult. But again, since we knew that this was going to be needed for student facing, they had to be tangible and they had to be attainable. Again, this is all voluntary. And some teachers do get a stipend for things, but not everybody did. So we also had to decide on what was going to work best. How are we going to use the LMS? Were we going to use something free? Was there a cost involved? How were people in their usage? Did they have good internet lines? We have a lot of instructors at UCF that although they teach online, they either come to campus or they come to another place. So we had to make sure that those who may live, we have somebody that lives on a ship off the coast of St. Pete, that while they're on their sailboat, that they would absolutely have access to everything. The other thing that we really tripped up on, and it became very apparent, was cultural awareness. We are all very involved with that. Flo and I present on that. This is something that has been a lifelong commitment to both of us. But it's things like we think everybody knows what July 4th is because we're here in the United States. And a lot of people internationally know it because of bases and military everywhere. But it's not there. And we talked about one of the for on Halloween, but they celebrated the Day of the Dead. And what we knew of it from Mexico was very different on how it was in Guatemala. So we really made sure to be very aware on very different angles from that. And also, it's very nice to have so many international colleagues that I work with, Florence being one of them, that brought all of that with along with her faculty development. Um, Time management, since it wasn't part of their normal job requirements, it really technically wasn't part of our normal job requirements. And we thought we were just going to kind of hold some hands and say, here, this is what you have to plug in. It didn't work that way at all. So it became a labor of love. And sometimes it was, we would build it, we'd meet together, we'd tear it apart, we'd rebuild it. And then we each took little different sections of it so that it didn't become onus and you weren't seeing everything and becoming blind to it. We also had to realize, again, as I said, the different time zones, the different countries. We also had some UCF professors that don't live in Florida full time. We had somebody that was in Portugal. We had somebody that was down in Brazil. Our community and our professors were global, and we had to take that account, especially when we went into live workshops. So again, the heavy lifting was done by the instructional designers. And I'm really, again, going to applaud Florence and Efren and Rebecca. They really went out there and they made sure that we were taking every single competency in the big book that SUNY put out, but what was needed for us. We also built the website. We started from scratch. We decided to do Canvas for teachers because both of us, UVG and University of Central Florida, used Canvas Instructor. So it was an easy build for them and for us to be able to do this. We had to think of what did they need to do before the courses, before the meetings, how were we going to assess them, how were we going to help them when we say fly, go, be free, and their work, and to reach back. We also had to involve our peer mentor or our faculty mentors who were coming in with their knowledge and getting feedback from them. Bernardo Ramirez and Irene Pons were very successful COIL collaborators at different universities. And actually, Bernardo was on the opposite end working with United States University when he did it. And so it was fun to get their feedback on all of it. We also had to respond to Wendy Howard, who was the director of iLab, as well as Darren Kane, who was the head of continuing education. We also had to speak to Wendy Bellinger, who was the head of Canvas and technical support and helping us from the UVGN. And we also then, in the background, we didn't have to do it. We had to respond to Global. So this is just a screenshot of our opening page. We wanted to also make sure that our photos and everything else were very inclusive because we didn't know, we weren't seeing everybody face to face before we met. And so we wanted to make sure it was a comfortable atmosphere for everybody, and everything along the way was very inclusive and accessible. So then we started. So Flo, I'm going to cover this. I'll let you jump in. Are you ready to jump in?
Yes. So one of the things that I will reiterate for the build is that as we worked on Canvas Free for Teachers and we thought about what we were going to do for the connection to work well, we had to have pre-course work where we did a flipped classroom model where they would complete some work, and then when they came into the workshop, then they would be able to share the work that they did. And then they would have faculty mentors who had already gone through that process, work with them, listen to their stories, and tell them what not to do. So this was a good success setup for us in terms of having something to look back at when they were on their own without us being in the room, and being able to have a jumping off point for the questions that they wanted to ask. So going over to the launch section of the work, we were able to go into our faculty development workshops. One of the things that we did is that we had the peers, for the pilot, we had a pre-connection workshop that was called a speed networking lounge, where all the people had a short amount of time when they were in a breakout room with another partner, talking about their courses, talking about themselves, talking about what they wanted to accomplish, and then coming out of that, they were able to get matched. So we had a mixer, we had the mingle, and then they were matched. So that was how the success was done. It was intentional. We had an idea of who could work together, but we wanted to also give them an opportunity to choose. So they were able to do that during our pilot work startup. Then we had 3 faculty development workshops that went through the areas of the COIL. So if you're already familiar with COIL, you know that there are 4 areas where the students would complete an icebreaker activity together, then they would do a collaborative activity or project together, then they would select what they wanted to work on as individuals, and then they would reflect. So the final one is supposed to be the reflection activity. So I think there's a typo on our slide here. So we had the work set up where they had a before workshop work. So they had pre-work to do. And then during the workshop, they would share that work and be in their teams with a faculty mentor, instructional designer. Some collaborative approaches were done. And then post-workshop, they had to put out their final product. So that was some of the things. We had everything in Zoom because both of our schools in the pilot were Zoom. They were Zoom users, and we were able to do some Spanish interpretation during the workshop, but that was mostly for us as English speakers because we had agreed beforehand that all the teaching was going to be done in English. So the professors themselves were competent speakers of second language speakers of English. We did the interpretation mostly when they got stuck on a word that they wanted to share in Spanish. Then we had the transcriptions running so that we would all understand them, because even some of us who are second language speakers of Spanish, when a native speaker is going quickly, it's all over, and then we have to find out what is happening after the fact. So we had some things built in place. We have instructional designers who are themselves first language speakers of English, and then there are some of us also who are second language, who are first language speakers of Spanish, sorry, and then we have some of us who are second language speakers of Spanish, and then our colleague from Guatemala or our second language speakers of English, and they are also able to read and and produce their writing in English.
And
So
Flo, I'm going to just say there's no such thing as a perfect presentation, thus the problem there with the reflection instead of selection. There's also no
mhm.
such thing as a perfect class, and we tried our best to think of every eventuality. And workshop two, where I was in a breakout room with two faculty members from UVG, and the UCF person was very ill that day, and they spoke fluent Spanish, and these happened to be two of the weakest in speaking Spanish or speaking English because they didn't do it. My Spanish, same thing. I don't do it often enough and I do hesitate a lot. So we had our entire 15-minute breakout session. They spoke in Spanish, I spoke in English. We understood each other perfectly, and everybody was comfortable and did what they needed to do. So, again, it doesn't have to be always as formal as we want it to be. Sometimes it can be more of what we need to do.
So this was the breakout of the timeline overview. So we started in the fall of 2024 and we launched the COIL in the spring of 2025. So this tells you we are one full cycle out, and we are starting a new cycle right now for those who are matched on in fall of 2025. So this is what it looked like. One of the things that we noticed is that um, on the Eastern Seaboard, where we have Eastern Daylight Time and we have Eastern Standard Time, but UVG did not change their time. So we started out with a 1 hour difference and we ended up with a 2 hour difference when we switched times. So we had to be aware of that even in our training, and this was helpful to happen because it happened again in the spring when teaching started. Also, UVG starts school later than UCF, so that had to be built into the process. And so the holidays were different, the breaks were different. They are a very religious country. They have a lot of religious holidays that are not celebrated here in the US. So all of that had to be built into the curricula as we looked at the dates together.
So I'm going to talk about Faculty Workshop 1 because this is the one I designed and I led. And it was about icebreakers. And I chose to do an icebreaker, and that was part of their pre-course um, activities that they had to do. They had to read about the different types of icebreakers, talk about one that they think that they would really like to do with their class, and then when they had the breakout session during this workshop, they would have a chance to talk about it. So again, the workshops would we would have pre-course activity. We would meet as a large group. We would have some fun dynamic and activities. And I chose to do something called Two Truths and a Lie, where I said two things that were true about me and one thing that wasn't. And they had to guess what it was or why and ask questions. And they really had a nice time picking me apart. I think my colleagues had more fun picking me apart. And some of my colleagues who knew me better had to not ask as many questions, but it was very fun to show them how the best practices could go. Then they went into breakout sessions with people that they were paired with and talked about what did they like about that activity, what were effective strategies from that, and then how would they pick or what would they have picked or do for their curriculum. There was a lot of different styles of activities and link outs to all of those so that they could find the opportunity that they needed to bring it back to their classroom. Again, we had people not in the same subject area, but they had the same concept ideas. We had people that were marketing, working with people that were developing, and how were they going to do an icebreaker for both of them. It seemed across the board that a lot of people were also very concerned more about the cultural awareness aspect of things, and they wanted to try and build it into it. One of the faculty members that I worked with, the one who was in Portugal, decided that their icebreaker activity was going to be 1 minute acting as if they were going into a store into their country. What type of store would it be? What would they buy? And why would they buy it? And then they would share that with the other students and talk about how is it different? What type of store is it? So they would have some cultural awareness of day to day items, but how did that fit into the actual learning objective of the class? Well, again, they were trying to project develop marketing something. They were trying to develop what type of products, why was something visual. So they were even starting then in workshop one in an icebreaker activity to really start getting insights in what they could do and how they could get their students to get together. After everybody came back into the big room, they were allowed to share what they talked about or any insights that they learned. And we also had our faculty mentors talk to them then about their insights and maybe even some hiccups or some successes that came from people that came before them. We also had two following workshops, and again, they followed the same concept, and it was within a 4 month period that we did it. So it was almost every 3 weeks we had another workshop. The instructional designers were responsible for going in and looking at the work that they were putting in, and we scaffolded all of the work so that they could come out with something and immediately start putting it into their class so that they would be ready to teach it out. So this is what we said that their final project had to be. And they all had to post this because we wanted everybody to see everybody else's work and give feedback on it. Because what we have learned through our faculty development program at UCF is that showcase is really important because it might illustrate something you never thought of about your course, about your assignment, that other people who aren't so enmeshed in it will see. And Flo, I think I'm going to turn it over to you for the final components.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, as Tina said, was ensure that everyone had everything ready. And they had to have everything ready before fall break
Yes.
because we each went off on Christmas at different times, and we each came back in the spring at different times in terms of the schools. So some of the classes would have started before other classes. So the faculty needed to have everything that they had to work with. They had to have worked on their icebreaker together. They had to work on the collaborative activities, how the students were going to work together, and they had to design an assessment plan, including a cultural component. So they had to also decide on the due dates, at least a rough draft of those due dates, so that when the classes started, the students would know that they were going to COIL, even though they would not yet meet their COIL partners. They were able to modify the plan, so they were not set in stone, but we wanted to see something, and the partners had to agree. So let us say Bob and Alex were doing the same class in two different countries. Then Bob was the person who started to think about the idea, but Alex had to also understand and agree that they were going to go forward with that idea so that both faculty would be able to implement it without challenge in their own environment. So this was why this final project was set up like this, and they were asked to submit all of these pieces. So they whatever they did in workshop one, the icebreaker, they had to say what cultural competencies the students were going to gain from that, how it was aligned with their course objectives and ideology. So, for example, if you had an environmental class that was you looking at the built environment, and you had another environmental class that was looking at water safety, they could go well together, and they would have to come up with something that would be supportive. So the students were able to see what they're building on the one hand, how or their building would affect water quality on the other hand, even though that was not a part of their core curriculum.
And to piggyback that, it was really exciting for us to see how much the faculty wanted the students to have such an interactive and successful time of it, that they were really open to being able to modify on the spot. And one of the faculty mentors made sure to tell them, listen, sometimes you have to read the rooms, you have to read the class and see, do I have, is this a class that's going to be open to something that's a little more dynamic, or how do I lead them down to that? And so know what you need to do, know your students, because we may suggest something in all of these workshops and the UCF and faculty may not remember this or think about it, but when you get to that classroom and see something, you may remember something that was important to you. So
Mm-hmm.
reflections were a little bit, how do you grade somebody on this that's changing? So we wanted to make sure that we had survey evaluations throughout the workshops. We had survey evaluations, some qualitative data, quantitative data. The COIL projects really then themselves had some faculty survey and student surveys, and they came back and they were not counted for or against or anything like that. But we're still gathering information. We're still doing that. Some people are just now teaching their COIL projects this last fall semester. So we're just getting the student surveys back from that. All of the faculty members have been so pleased and so happy. And I'm going to go back and say it's because of how it was built. The effort, the intention that went into the build of this, I think rivaled even SUNY starting it up, because we were able to learn from SUNY and FIU so well. We were able to do it. And that's why we are presenting today, because we want everybody to take what we learned and how we learned it and be able to copy it and use it very effectively at their own university, no matter the size. And
And
with
before
that, oh,
before
sorry.
we go into the success resources, I just wanted to say the main goal of the COIL project was to enhance intercultural competencies and collaboration across borders. So the faculty were able at the end to demonstrate effective communication skills. They were able to look at multiculturalism. So a lot of times when we are siloed in our own spaces, we don't think about the other person or what they might be going through. So for example, we thought it would be seamless to go onto Canvas Free for Teachers. We had half-day sit-ins with people just trying to get them connected, because if they already had a Canvas account, then getting into Canvas was painful. So we had that. We had to learn to apply conflict resolution strategies when people were were frustrated. And as we worked through that and modeled the behavior for faculty, then they were able to help their students when they got them online. We also looked on a reflection of personal biases. My For the most part, the United States is an English forward country. So our expectation is that everywhere we go, the next person can speak English, but we had to confront those biases even during the workshop as we talked to show that we were growing interculturally, that we were open, because the faculty had to do that for their students. So we had to do it as a model going forward to say, okay, how are we using Google Translate? Are there other apps that the students might need? How are we facilitating this? Would they be using WhatsApp and other opportunities for engagement when the students had work to do? So all of those things had to be built into the process as we worked into the faculty development. And those are the things that we asked faculty about on the survey. What were they participating? What was the participation like? How did the milestone works? Did the deadlines work the way they were planned? What adjustments they had to make? What multicultural perspective did they as faculty walk away with? And the same thing was echoed for the students to a lesser extent related to time and complexity and so on. So we think that this was useful for us, even as faculty developers, to learn, because sometimes we have faculty who are themselves second language speakers of English, and having been immersed in this process helps us to be open and to be aware of our own biases as first language speakers of English when we go into those faculty workshops. Over to you, Tina.
Well, well said, Flo. Very well said. And that was what I was going to say about our resources. We've shared what we did for some of our projects. We shared some PowerPoints. There's a whole resource page with links on it. But we were able to, by doing those short surveys during the workshops, to find out what was working, what wasn't working, run in there, put in links, adjust things. You have to know, not only is it a labor of love, it's a flexible labor of love. You have to be attentive to your audience. And I think that also showed our faculty that they would be able to do it. Again, a cultural norm there is this is set in stone. That's what we have to do. That's it. And I think that's true among a lot of universities. But this showed them, everybody, that you can be flexible, you can be adaptable. And some of our early attrition in faculty partnerships on both sides were people that realized what was going to be involved on their end to develop and what was going to be, you know, the uncertainty of was it going to be right for their students. So they wanted to wait and see how their other faculty partners or their colleagues did it, and then they're a part of it now. We have two people that did not start in the pilot program that are going to be joining us. We have people from Europe that have joined the project this time around. So we wanted to make sure that we were identifying everything from why did faculty not sign up to why did faculty have successes, or what we can do to make the workshops and everything better this time around to give them what they needed. So we want to make sure that you're successful. Our success is your success. Flo is one of the most dynamic women I've ever met, and I wish I had met her at the start of my career instead of at the tail end of my career. She has been mentoring somebody and another colleague in another department, and this woman is starting to be a rising superstar because of Florence. So definitely take our successes. We have everything there. We are here for you for anything that you should need. We're happy to collaborate with you, and we're happy to make sure that you have a very successful COIL project for your institution. Thank you so much. And if I can make sure that I get out of this, I will stop sharing my screen. And I can't. So I do apologize.
Well, tomorrow we have a session that'll tie in with this. The third session tomorrow morning is Global Classrooms, Global Citizens, Rethinking Higher Education Through Virtual Exchange. And happens to be the presenter is in Stuttgart, Germany. So
Is
he's
that
a
Rich?
Fabulous.
Is it Richard?
yeah.
He came to our COIL event at
All
OLC.
right.
So I was not able to see his, so I'm excited to see it. It has been marked for us. I believe Flo and Richard are collaborators, aren't you?
Oh, great.
Are there any questions? Flo, I'm having you monitor that because all I can see is my screen. I can't even get to the Zoom screen right now.
Well, I'll say that, I've done a few things with people internationally, and you're right. Well, obviously, the time difference is a challenge, but what you encounter, the different holidays, the different start and end of the terms, all of those have to be negotiated, and that's probably the more difficult part. I mean, the fun part is actually the teaching, but all those things ahead of time, trying to get everything to mesh can be a
Well,
real challenge.
and it's not just the instructors. We had to kind of forethink it for them. And this time around, Florence was there and she addressed this. We have people in different time zones this time, not just one time zone. And so, how is somebody in Stuttgart, which is right now 6 hours ahead of us, and then we go on to daylight savings time, so then they'll be 7 hours ahead of us with people from UVG and Guatemala and Brazil that are an hour behind us and never change. And so you're doing the time dance between everybody. So it becomes a lovely little, really just, it's a dance, it's a tango between everything. And it's something that we do on our end and setting up and think about it. And I was very glad that we had thought about how certain things would be before any of it started too. It was a lot. It definitely was. So thank you again for having us here at this. It has been an amazing conference and it was an amazing session to be invited to. And we do hope that people will take everything. Do I send you the slide deck or what do we do?
Yeah, if you want to, please send it to
Okay.
me. I
I
will add it to the schedule where your session is. It'll say
okay.
slides and they can download it. Be glad to
I
do
will
it.
go in and fix it and send it straight to you. And so everybody has the link and we hope we see people in there and we'll let you know. Okay.
That'd be
Thank you
great.
so much. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. I'm not sure if he's still there or just kind of listening in at one ear while he's doing something else. Flo, you are the most amazing colleague in the world. And I will put that in writing so you can have it for your annual review.
Thank you so much, Tina. It's a pleasure as always working with you. And we hope that our colleagues will get some nuggets that they can use as they go forward with their own process.
Oh, yeah. So
Thank you
thank
so much.
both of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Take the rest of the day off.
Thank you. You too.
Why
Go have some
not?
hot tea and rest your voice.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Flo.